Chairman Khrushchev, this is the Soviet Union's briefing on the Cuban Missile Crisis. Since 1933, Cuba has been run by a corrupt and violent dictator called Batista. He was supported in power by the Americans, who had key economic control of the island. He was useful to them. America dominated Cuba's trade and bought most of its main sugar crops. America exploited the Cubans, owning the best land and the biggest businesses. There was a huge gulf in Cuba between the wealthy elite who were close to Batista and the Americans and the vast majority who were poor. In 1959, with no support from ourselves, Batista was overthrown by a people's revolution led by Fidel Castro. Castro approached the Americans for support, but the Americans refused to support Castro, even refusing to buy Cuba's sugar. Castro wanted to end America's exploitation of Cuba. He wanted a fair society based upon communist ideas. This would be the first communist country in the Americas, north or south. Consequently, America cut all ties with Cuba. We stepped in, the Soviet Union stepped in to purchase Cuba's sugar and give a vast amount of aid to Cuba. Castro was grateful, and Comrade Chairman, you and Castro have become very firm friends. In 1961, in an attempt to remove Fidel Castro from power, the Americans attempted to land a force of pro-Batista supporters on the island of Cuba to overthrow Cuba's legal government. They landed at the Bay of Pigs. Unfortunately for Castro, the Americans crucially failed to supply any air support to this invasion. The invasion subsequently failed, but Fidel Castro, understandably, is looking towards the Soviet Union for increased protection from the Americans, whom he suspects will invade the island of Cuba once again. We have been more than willing to supply Cuba with military equipment to promote the country's defense against the Americans, who are only 90 miles away in Florida. To the Americans, Russia's friendship, our friendship with Cuba, looks like a serious threat to their security. Chairman Khrushchev, this is our briefing on President Kennedy. Kennedy is a new president. He has many problems to solve in the United States. You met him at a summit meeting, a conference in Vienna. You were not that impressed with the new young president. He has already made mistakes. Failure to provide air support at the Bay of Pigs. He had done nothing to stop you building the Berlin Wall between East and West Berlin in 1961. Is he too young? Is he too inexperienced to cope? Can you use your greater statesmanship, experience and maturity of power to our advantage over the United States? Chairman Khrushchev, this is our briefing on how we believe the Americans view you. They understand, Chairman, that you are at the height of your power and that it took some time for you to emerge as the sole leader of the Soviet Union after Stalin's death in 1953. They are aware of your 1956 secret speech where you denounced Stalin and his policies. They regard you as clever and intelligent and a Russian patriot, prepared to defend the Soviet Union at all costs. They are aware of your desire, your understandable desire, to achieve a peaceful coexistence with America and the Western democracies. But they are also aware that you wish Russia to remain strong and able to defend itself against the threat of democracy. They know that you are extremely concerned by the fact that all through Western Europe, America has ringed the Soviet Union with nuclear weapons. They are acutely aware that until the opportunity arose to base missiles in Cuba, we had no such ability to attack the Americans, our missiles being far too far away from the United States. Cuba gives you that advantage, basing a missile system only 90 miles away from the American mainland. It is your determination, and the Americans understand that you wish to lead the communist world. Chairman Khrushchev, you have been provided with this grid, listing a series of options that you may undertake in your handling of the Cuban Missile Crisis. Next to each option, there are possible advantages and disadvantages to consider when reacting to American actions over Cuba. Chairman Khrushchev, my advice is to stay one step ahead and anticipate their actions so your responses can be quick, secure, and confident. Best wishes, Chairman Khrushchev.